Making a great pan sauce out of the fond or sticky bits left over from your stainless steel skillet can really elevate a dish. Today, I want to show you how to make a basic yet traditional and delicious pan sauce and give you a guide to making your own sauces at home. Every pan sauce starts off the same way, and with a little bit of practice, you can master it and it will become second nature to you. Let's dive in. So making a pan sauce really consists of a few steps, and the process is usually very similar between sauces. First, you want to cook your proteins and develop that fond. And then you want to sweat your base ingredients, which is usually onions or shallots. After that, you're going to add in your aromatics, which is usually garlic or ginger. And then you want to deglaze your fond. You want to get all those sticky bits out and then reduce your liquids. Now the next two steps are optional, but you can add in a thickener like butter, and you can add in your final aromatics that will give your sauce that next level of complexity. Now, regardless of what you do, you should always season your sauce to taste. So it's incredibly important to taste your sauce at the end and make sure that you got what you were trying to achieve. But don't worry, the more sauces that you make, the better you will get at it. And you'll be able to modify or substitute ingredients basically at will. But those fundamental steps are really the foundation to making a simple pan sauce. So follow me outside and let's make a basic pan sauce together. And along the way, I'll talk about some substitutions you can make. Then after, I'll talk about ways that you can modify your pan sauce with some very simple variations and ways that restaurants make pan sauces a lot faster. Okay, let's start off. Today I'll be cooking up some chicken and making a wonderful pan sauce. Every pan sauce starts off with fond. Fond is the sticky bits left over from searing, and it's loaded with flavor. The flavors you get from fond can't really be duplicated, and stainless steel cookware gives you the best results because they are the king at making fond. Today I'm going to sear the chicken in the pan and then finish them off in the oven. I'm going to use 2 pans and this one to make a sauce. After you have finished searing or even fully cooking your protein, the next thing you need to do is start off with fresh oil or fat. Dump out some of the burnt oil, but don't clean or wipe down the pan. Remember, you want all of that rich, sticky goodness that's left over. With your stove set to medium-low, start adding in your ingredients, typically onions or shallots. Shallots are a wonderful thing because they're sort of a hybrid between garlic and onions. Today I'll be using shallots. You want to let the onions or shallots sweat, which basically means cooking them and extracting the moisture, usually without browning or coloring them. Then you want to add in your aromatics, such as garlic, thyme, rosemary, scallions, whatever you want to add complexity and flavor to your sauce. Saute for 30 to 45 seconds or until fragrant. Next, you're going to deglaze. Deglazing is done with the liquid. It allows all of the caramelized bits stuck to the bottom of the pan to release. This is commonly done with wine for 2 reasons. The alcohol in the wine will add a certain texture to the ingredients, and the natural sugars in the wine along with the acidity will add complexity to the flavors. A rule of thumb is to add white wine to white meats and red wine to dark meats. It's also important to allow 2 minutes or so for all of the alcohol to burn off before proceeding, or you'll be left with a sauce that tastes a lot like alcohol. Some sauces are deglazed with bourbon or other spirits for additional flavor profiles. If you don't want to use an alcohol or spirit, I completely understand. You can still make an amazing sauce by substituting for chicken or vegetable stock, or even a non-alcoholic red or white wine vinegar. If you are going to use a vinegar, you don't want to use a lot like you would with wine. It's very acidic. Add a little bit to help you deglaze, and then add in stock for further deglazing. You'll want to scrape off all of the sticky bits when you are deglazing. Stainless steel can handle metal utensils just fine, but it's a good idea to use something soft like a wooden spatula. Now it's time to reduce aggressively. Turn up the temperatures to medium-high heat and start whisking. If you don't have a whisk, use a spoon. And keep whisking until that sauce has thickened. You'll start to see a trail at the bottom of the pan when scraped. Allow the pan to cool for 30 to 45 seconds and add in a thickener. In this case, I'm going to add in cold butter. Cold butter will emulsify better. If your sauce breaks, which basically means it starts to look greasy and oily, just add in a splash of water and it will come back to life. At this point, it's time to finish off your sauce. Season your sauce to taste with salt and pepper and add in any final aromatics like parsley, chives, or even basil. This sauce was absolutely delicious. It had the acidity that I was looking for and really complemented the chicken. As you can see here, it was very basic, very simple to do, and while the chicken was finishing off, I had the sauce going and it was ready. It was all timed perfectly. And honestly, every sauce starts off the same. As you get more experienced, you'll be able to make more variations.
Okay, so earlier I mentioned that I would talk about some modifications, variations, and a little trick that restaurants use to make pan sauces faster. A really popular way to modify a basic pan sauce is to make it into a creamy sauce by substituting in a thickener. You can use heavy cream to make a hearty sauce, and the thickener would actually be heavy cream in a cream sauce. Go figure. It's the same steps, except you would add in heavy cream after you have allowed the alcohol to completely burn off, and then you have to allow it to simmer, and then you would reduce it aggressively and whisk it, just like before. A trick restaurants use to make sauces faster is to add in other thickeners, like starches or even flours, for a more gravy-style type of sauce, and it cuts down on time. If you do choose to add in starch, first place the starch in a bowl with water and whisk it, making sure that the starch is fully dissolved before adding it into your pan and to your sauce. The starch would be added towards the end when your wine has simmered and the alcohol contents have completely evaporated. Starch needs to cook for about 1 to 2 minutes at around 205 degrees Fahrenheit for it to absorb water and thicken. If it's not properly cooked, it can cause a stomachache, so time it accordingly. Flour is another thing, for example, that restaurants use, and it should also be cooked alongside of the onions before adding any liquids. I like to leave an empty space on the side of my skillet where I kind of designate an area for flour, and then I cook my flour and remove all that nasty raw flour taste, which can also cause a stomachache. And then you just proceed with the steps as normal, deglazing and reducing, all the usual things that you would do to make a sauce. I usually avoid deglazing with alcohol when using flour. I stick to vinegars or stocks. Adding flour or starch as a thickener can really cut the time in half for making a pan sauce. So if you're in a hurry, it can be helpful, but it does add a more heaviness to the sauce. Restaurants do it to cut time and to add in a fullness. It's always better, in my opinion, to go the longer route unless you are trying to make more of a gravy style sauce. I always feel like the longer route tastes a bit better, and it's lighter and it keeps you wanting more, so you keep going back without overdoing it. Higher end restaurants have a saucier who is dedicated to making sauces, which has been prepped well in advance, and they usually don't use a thickener like flour or starch to save time necessarily. It's more intentional for whatever it is that they're trying to do to complement a dish, and it's the textures that they're looking for. One more tip that you can do and try out for yourself is to add in a sweetener to balance out a sauce. A pinch of sugar can go a long way, so when you're seasoning to taste, consider adding a layer of complexity by adding a pinch of sugar. If you're looking for a stronger garlic flavor in your sauce, add in some pressed garlic just before you start reducing aggressively. But be warned, it will be a powerful taste of garlic, so use it wisely. Other than that, practice and have fun doing it. After you've made some pan sauces a few times, it becomes second nature. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and experiment. Some of the best sauces out there happen completely by accident. Take care, everybody.